Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whatever time it is for you. Thank you for tuning into your daily dose of Donkey with Ginger. We're bringing you sports talk with the one and only Viking Donkey. And again, Mutant Gingy graced us this week with his presence. Welcome back, Gingy.
Yo, what up? Mutant Gingy in the house, coming back, getting stoked for football, NFL draft time.
Time to be the best optimist you could be because your team's going to take the best player ever and your future is bright.
Yes, the board is big and it's covered with future talent, Donkey.
Lots of it, we're hoping. But before we get into that, let's talk about some of the news stories that have been going around since last time me and you talked. I'll start with a kind of fun one. The Pittsburgh Steelers brought back Vince Williams. Better to have
Woot,
him than not.
woot, woot. Love Vince Williams. Big, huge contributions to the run defense. Uh, really a linebacker that he's coming back to the Steelers because I'm sure he shopped around out there and really couldn't find a place for his skill set to land in today's NFL. But I think that I love that type of linebacker. Hogs up the
Just
middle,
don't.
intimidates the quarterback. I'm happy to have him back.
Does. Just don't ever leave him on a slot receiver again. Or, like I say, every year I'm going to lose my mind, but every year I say that and we just keep doing it.
Oh, Donkey, one of the memorable moments of last year, him lined up in the Texans game versus Brandon Cooks. Thank God Deshaun Watson overthrew Cooks on that play. A lot of Steelers nerds out there might know what I'm talking about. It was scary.
Didn't Vinny celebrate like he did something good too?
Yeah.
Afterwards.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. He stopped it. It it was scary.
Classic.
Dangerous and scary. But yes. Glad to have him back.
Not so good news. James Conner goes to Arizona on what seems like a very, very cheap contract. Say what you want, he was our best running back.
Yeah, is he the guy of the future in Steelerland though? I don't know. It might.
Clearly not.
Well, clearly not at this point. But was he really the skill set that we're gonna need moving forward? I don't even know anymore, Donkey. But that definitely brings us to having a definite need in that position at the draft, and everybody and Steeler Nation knows who the fancy pants choice is in the first round that we're hearing everybody talking about. Fancy pants choice, Donkey.
Yeah. We'll get into that later. News other way around the division is Jadeveon Clowney to the Browns.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Even if he doesn't bring the sack numbers because he never really has, there's a reason that guy was a high draft pick. There's a reason that guy's always been valued by teams. He is a great run stuffing end, and he is great at getting off the end and blowing it up. And you put him opposite Myles Garrett, that could be scary if those two stay healthy.
Garrett on one end and Clowney on the other. You better have some good tackles.
Yeah, definitely. Weird news. Big Al went to talk to Baltimore, but it doesn't seem like anything's going to happen really soon. As it seems like Baltimore wants to wait till after the draft. But then also Baltimore trades Orlando Brown Jr., Pro Bowler, to the Chiefs for a first rounder and some other stuff going on because they're getting Ronnie Stanley back, and that's their big time left tackle they love. And Brown Jr. said he wants to play left tackle, so they're going to trade him to someone that'll let him.
Wow, it must be nice to have an influx of fantastic linemen.
It would be. Hey, that's what the draft's for, okay?
Let's hope so. It ain't for Najee Harris. Tell you that.
You say that. That's exactly what our draft's going to be for. But anyway, let's go ahead and let's start talking Steelers needs as brought to you by the Daily Dose. What is our premium need for Steelers going into the draft?
Gingy says it's offensive tackle. Number one, first and foremost. I've been preaching all offseason about that 31st ranked run game and how it contributes to the overall nastiness that was that offense, Donkey. My number one
Yeah, the
overall is
run
going to
game
be
didn't
tackle.
get it done. That's for sure. That's for sure. The run game didn't get it done. But I mean, a lot of the year felt like it was for lack of trying because James Conner did average 4.2 yards per carry, and that's not bad when you consider everyone loves Josh Jacobs, and that dude averages like 4.3 yards per carry. So you're talking James Conner was running the ball decently. The bigger problem was we didn't run the ball at all, either because we were behind late in the year or because we wanted to throw the ball 60% of the time. And anyone who's here going to tell me, but the 3-yard passes are our running game. No, they're not. There is a difference between making a team protect the run and throwing a 3-yard screen pass. And I agree with you. We need to get some tenacity in that line. I know you love Zach Banner, so that must mean you have no faith in Chuck Okorafor. If you're thinking our biggest need is tackle going into the draft, and or you think both of those guys are limited to be only right tackles, meaning left tackle is a specific need.
I think left tackle is the specific need.
I can feel you on that. And draft need number 2?
In Gingyland, that's going to
In
be
Gingyland.
the heir apparent to Marquise Pouncey. And because Hassenauer is not the guy of the future.
Please, God, no. No BJ Finney?
No Finney, no Hassenauer. That's not your future. We need to be looking young into the draft for a center.
I agree 100%. Center to me is probably actually the biggest need because I don't have faith in either of those two guys to play at starter caliber. But I don't know if the first round if there's even a center worth taking in the first round. I mean, most of those guys are graded out as mid to late second round picks, so it'd be a big reach to take them at 124. But I mean, let's get into your third need, and then we'll talk if we think we have even any more needs that the Steelers should address.
Third need in Gingyland, running back. The Steelers lost James Conner, as you stated earlier, putting Benny Snell Jr., number 1 on the depth chart. Donkey. Not going to get it done.
True. There are still some intriguing names at running back in the free agent market. I mean, there's Jerick McKinnon, there's Telvin Coleman, there's Todd Gurley. If you like the old backs, there's Adrian Peterson. If you like former Steelers, there's Le'Veon Bell. I mean, there's an interesting hodgepodge out there going in running backs that maybe could be an upgrade. But in Steelerland, I know everyone has their mindset on one man.
Bama man, Najee Harris. That's the popular name this week, isn't it, Donkey?
Yep, but I agree with you. I think running back is a big need. I'll get into why I don't think it's a need you want to take in the draft a little later, but I just want to go through this roster really quick, and you tell me if the position's strong enough or if we're to be a Super Bowl contender needs shoring up. So we've already said running back. We've already said offensive tackle. We've already said center. So let's keep going on the offensive side. How about offensive guard? Do we need to strengthen that?
Still got, DeCastro on the right?
DeCastro and Dotson would be your starters right now. Yep.
I think that can get it done.
I would like to upgrade it because I don't know. I'm scared to bet on DeCastro bringing it back because anytime you bet on someone on the other end of 30 to bring it back, even in offensive line, it's not a very good bet to make. And he was just bad last year. I really hope it was injury related because that's the best chance he has of bringing it back. But I don't know. So let's go to skill position players then. We have a tight end, Eric Ebron, going to get it done with the dude we drafted from Michigan, I think, last year, whatever the heck his name is.
I think Ebron is good to get it done, Donkey. Hands, problem last year. We know it can improve,
Blocking,
though.
terrible.
Yeah,
I think he's also one of the big problems in the running game. Is if you watched him try to block, he just got fucking lit every time.
We'll take a TE2. Yeah, but we don't need to look for that in the draft.
Yeah, I know. Like we talked about earlier, and unfortunately got cut off due to some technical difficulties. Oh, Jesse James is out there, and as long as he isn't reaching the football out at the goal line, he's not doing too terrible for the Steelers.
One of the most devastating moments in my existence.
Hey, he got the catch rule change, so we got that going for us. So
True.
anyway. All right, so wide receivers, can we at least say we're secure at wide receiver?
How many do you want? We got what?
Well, we have 4.
3 good ones? What's...
Oh, it depends on your view of James Washington, but yeah, at least 3 good ones.
Okay.
So I think we're pretty set there. Like, wide receiver seems set because your 5th receiver is your kickoff specialist, and well, we have one of those on the roster too. And that brings us to maybe the most controversial ones that people will say is either our biggest need or not a need at all, and that would be quarterback. Me personally, I think if any of the 5 quarterbacks who are up there, you're talking Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, if for some reason Trevor Lawrence, Trey Lance, or Mac Jones falls to the Steelers, I think you have to take quarterback because even if you don't think it's a need now, it's going to be a need next year. Or there are the people who think that's the biggest need because they think the biggest detriment of the Steelers last year was Ben. I don't think it was the biggest detriment, but he wasn't a positive influence on the team's outcomes. And you have the people who think Ben is the answer no matter what. So this is a questionable one. Gingy, where do you fall on? Is the quarterback a position that needs upgraded?
Ben is the answer for this year, whether anybody likes it or not. If the value is there at the first round, which is mainly where you're going to draft any of these guys, yeah, you take it. We need for the future. But in terms of immediately, there are other things that have got to be addressed immediately for the Steelers before
Agreed.
quarterback.
Agreed. The way they built this team, it's clear that Ben's the answer for this team. I still think quarterback's a big need. I still think if any of those 5 are there, you take them. That's just me personally because I think that's one of the few spots where you can get a play for the future because who knows what the future is going to hold for us, but I don't think you can just bet on one guy. I mean, look at Green Bay. They're a great example of how they've always had great quarterback plays is they're willing to bet on a young quarterback before theirs is done. They took Aaron Rodgers when they still had Brett Favre. They took Love. Who knows if this one's going to work out while they still had Aaron Rodgers. Are the Steelers in that place now where we should take someone even though we have someone?
Yeah, I think that it's coming soon enough, Donkey, that if there was someone there, we take them now.
All right, so that wraps up offense. Let's go to defense. We'll start defensive line as a whole because now the Steelers don't really play with a true nose tackle. It's more we just play random rotating defensive ends. I don't see it as a need because we have enough of those defensive ends with bringing back Alu. Agreed, or is there a little bit of a need there?
No, with bringing back Alu, I think that there should be enough depth there.
That brings us to linebacker. We'll start at edge linebacker. I think there's a huge need there. I do like Alex Highsmith. Anyone who's heard me talk says I do. He has a good first step. He has the good makings of a potential pass rusher, but he doesn't know how to finish yet. And to be honest, there is zero depth behind them there. There is no other person. So if Highsmith doesn't work out, you're just capital screwed. So, and we saw what happened when we lost one outside linebacker last year. Our team went from elite pass rushing to and it really killed the defense. So to me, outside linebacker, edge rusher, huge need. Gingy?
Yeah, I think the thing that most convinced me about your argument, Donkey, was depth. Do I say that we need to replace Highsmith immediately? I don't think he's the guy at this point, but I'm not going to rule out him being able to develop. And I'm not going to say it's going to be instantly. But do I identify outside linebacker as an immediate need? No. Could it be in the future? Yeah. But in terms of depth, if we can find somebody in a later round that can play a specific role, maybe in round 4, one of those couple...
Round 1!
One of those couple picks in 5, 6. Is there value there at round 1 at 24 for an edge rusher, Donkey? Are you
we will
aware?
get into that.
Okay.
We will get into that.
Okay, because I'd like to... that's what I'm not necessarily familiar with, is the value commodity is of the positions and what's available and what's not.
So let's move on. Inside linebacker. I know we're bringing back essentially everyone, but let's be honest. Devin Bush is coming off an ACL. Robert Spillane showed where his weaknesses is. Vince Williams has shown where his weaknesses are. I mean, you got Allen out there who clearly can't stop a run to save his life. Is inside linebacker a need?
I don't think it's an immediate. You can always add more depth at that position, as you could see last year about what happens if you lose a good one and you don't have backups to replace him. But there are more pressing needs. Donkey.
I agree there's more pressing needs, but I do view inside linebacker as a need, as I don't feel we have two current NFL starting caliber inside linebackers on this roster. We have guys who can fill in, we have guys who play good, and we have, in my opinion, the guys who would be top tier backups, like, fringe starters, Vince Williams type of guy, like what LJ Fort was, what Robert Spillane is, and maybe Spillane takes a step forward next year. But right now, based off their play and based off what I've seen, we have fringe starters. So obviously, if you could improve a fringe starter, that'd be huge. Like if Micah Parsons is there at 24, check, run that thing to the frickin' board.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Middle linebacker is not a strength, it's not a weakness compared to other positions. So I would say it's a slight need, and that's what's scary is the Steelers have a lot of just slight needs because they have, we could do with it, but we can't. And that's the next position to me. Cornerback, another one that is, it's a slight need. It's not a desperate need because we do have the people, we do have the fill, but I mean, losing Mike Hilton, your starting nickel corner, and losing Steven Nelson, your starting outside corner, it's not immediately need to replace because you have Cam Sutton and then you have Justin Lane, who, by the way, got arrested for gun charges and speeding. The hell are you doing?
Wow.
And you have Pierre Desir, or whatever. It's not his name is. That's the wrong guy. That's actually a draft pick from a few years ago of another team. But we have the guy that they like out of South Florida. I mean, so maybe it's not a huge pressing need, but it still is a position that I wouldn't mind seeing someone added to. Preferably one that's really good at blitzing the quarterback. Maybe second round look. Maybe if someone like Asante Samuel Jr. falls in the second round, I don't know. Take him because it's not like you don't need him.
Yeah, I agree with that pick. I would definitely take that person in the second round if they fell.
And then we get to the one position I feel the Steelers don't need to do anything. That is safety. I like Terrell Edmonds. I like Minkah Fitzpatrick. I think safety is one of our few, secure positions.
Yeah, a couple first-round guys in and of themselves, aren't they, Donkey?
Yes, they are, and both have, in one way or another, at least lived up to the pedigree of being starters for our first-round picks. I mean, maybe not the greatest starters. I know a lot of people don't like Edmonds, but it is what it is. I think he's perfectly fine out there. And so that gets us into what should the Steelers do with that first overall pick, Gingy?
Ooh, Donkey. Like I said, it's got to be tackle. Who's on the board?
That's a good question. So who would be available on the board at tackle? I mean, you're probably talking Penny Sewell's going to go really early. You're probably talking Slater and Vera Tucker go in the teens. Perhaps Darisaw stays out there as a guy you could get. Maybe Tevin Jenkins from Oklahoma State. Honestly, a guy who's almost guaranteed to be on the board or ranks as a late first, early second is Samuel Cosme from Texas. An athletic dude, has a little bit of a mean side, not the greatest blocker. Jalen Mayfield will probably be there. If you're looking to wait after that, you could hope that maybe Etchberg or Runs or Leatherwood, maybe even Carmen, who's, by the way, if you want a big mauler, dude, I think Leatherwood or Carmen are your picks.
Mm-hmm.
But that would be second-round talent, not first-round talent. You're talking first-round talent. I guess you're going to say Tevin Jenkins, Samuel Cosme are the most likely available for the Steelers if they have fallen in love with one of those two guys, right?
I like Tevin Jenkins. We could go that way.
He's a big boy from Oklahoma State. Let's go on that.
Yes, sir. That's what we're looking for. Big, dirty run blocker.
I was split on what I would take at 124. I think tackle's a huge need, and I think one of those guys would be huge. But If I was going to take a tackle, I don't think the difference between them and the early second round guys is huge. I would try to trade back. The same idea as getting center, which is what I originally wanted. But then when you look at these centers, man, none of them are worth a 124 pick. None of those centers are good enough for that. You have to trade back and take one of those early second round. I mean, I am a fan of the centers. I can't say I hate them because you go out there. I like Creed Humphrey. I like Landon Dickerson. I don't like them as a first round pick. I don't think the value is there for them as a first round pick. But my personal first round pick, and it kills me to say this because I'm a Pitt fan, and both the dudes I want the Steelers to take in the first round come from Penn State. I am talking the two freakishly athletic linebackers who one ran a 4.39, Micah Parsons, and unfortunately will not be available for the Steelers draft, I don't think. But if he is, run that damn paper slip to the board because that guy needs to be on the Steelers. However, the other guy, I love an edge rusher from Penn State who had 0 sacks last year. I know that sounds stupid, like what the hell is wrong with me? But let me break down something to you. He might not have had any sacks, but still, all the coaches in the Big Ten voted him first team all conference. All the coaches see the special ability in this dude. And let me quote some numbers to you on this. 6'5", 260 pounds, bench presses, 225, 21 times. So some good strength there, right? Mm-hmm. Guess what his 40 time is? 4.36 40 time. Are you shitting me?
It's moving.
If Jason Owe is there, how'd you not take this dude? The athleticism, he is a more athletic Bud Dupree. A little smaller, but faster. I know, and Bud Dupree didn't have the numbers. And I know this is a pick that you're like, but Donkey, we're playing for this year, clearly. Why the hell would we waste a first-round pick on a guy who's probably not going to be there until year 3? Just like Bud Dupree wasn't there until year 3. Well, I take this pick because he doesn't have to be there year 1. He just has to be a rotational piece year 1. And being a rotational piece will help the Steelers out so much. And if, for some reason, he figures it out in year 1, you put him and TJ Watt on the same line, dude, who'd you block?
Yeah.
So I know it seems like you're not addressing the biggest needs here, but I'm going to be honest. I don't think the Steelers win with offense this year. I think if they win, it's because they're able to retool that defense. If they have a championship, it's because that defense is Super Bowl caliber defense. And to me, the player who is most likely to have a huge influx in that, because the way the Steelers did it last year was pass rush, and that's the way they'll do it this year because our corners tend to get beat a little bit if we leave them in deep coverage for too long. I think you take a guy like him. I mean, I love the skill set he brings. I love just the... I sound like John Gruden here right now. I'm in love with the dude because of his freaking measurables. But I really am. I mean, everything he brings measurable-wise is fun. And that's the pick I want. But do we want to talk about some of the guys who I've mostly seen being mocked to the Steelers? Who all the experts want to go? Do we want to talk about that?
Yeah, let's hear some of it, Donkey.
So I've heard Creed Humphrey, which addresses a huge need, right? Because center's a huge need.
Yes.
I've heard Tevin Jenkins. I've heard Samuel Cosme. Again, huge need, offensive tackles. But there's one guy whose name shows up more often than not. You don't want to tell me who that is? Because I'm sure you've heard it. He's going to be the savior because he's everything we need.
I want it to be Tevin Jenkins. I know who you're talking about, Donkey. I wanted it to be Tevin Jenkins.
I would prefer that one, but all the talk is Najee Harris, running back, Alabama.
Flashy. He's a big
Please
boy.
No. Please no. Everyone's going to tell me but he's going to be at least as good as Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs is no better than James Conner. I don't mean this to sound terrible, but dude, no, please, just no on first-round running backs. And the reason I say that is, let's do a little fun talk on first-round running backs. We'll go back to 2016, where we have probably arguably the most successful first-round running back in the past 5 years. And that was Ezekiel Elliott. But here's the problem with running backs. Do you know how many first-round running backs have more seasons fully healthy than seasons hurt?
How many?
2. Ezekiel Elliott has more full seasons than injured seasons, even though he has missed seasons due to injury. And Christian McCaffrey has more full seasons than injured seasons. So if you're taking a running back and you're doing it to build a championship team, it's a terrible decision, and Steelers fans should know better. You know why I say that? Our 2 biggest chances at Super Bowls, who got hurt and really killed our runs? Who was not at full strength on both of those runs, but both of those seasons was one of the biggest players for the Steelers? I'll give you a hint. He's a current free agent.
It's Le'Veon.
Le'Veon Bell. Exactly. He was the best running back in football for 3 years. Where was he in the playoffs?
That's what happens when you get 20, 22, 23 touches a game.
That's my point. As a first-round running back, you expect him to be able to carry the load like that, and you expect him to get it. But when you give them it, they break down, and at the end of the year, they're not as good as they were at the beginning. Why do the Titans struggle so much in the playoffs? Because Derrick Henry's worn down. The thing is, while the first-round running back is pretty, it doesn't make sense. Like I said, we'll go back and we'll look at the numbers. Zeke Elliott, do you know who you could have got later in that draft? 2nd round, Derrick Henry. 3rd round, Kenyon Drake. 5th round, Jordan Howard and Alex Collins, who I know Alex Collins only had 1 good year, but I wanted to put him on here to see if you knew who Alex Collins is.
I didn't.
He is a running back who ran for 1,000 yards. I believe it was the season Lamar Jackson won the MVP. He was 1,000-yard back the season Lamar Jackson was there in Baltimore. He was drafted by Seattle, but he made his big his big year in Baltimore and hasn't done anything since. I think he got hurt at the end of that year, to be honest. All right, so let's go to 2017. Let me name you a couple names here. Leonard Fournette, worth a first-round pick?
Consistent, not inconsistent production, but not a terrible player. Fills a role.
Career 3.9 yards per carry.
He played for Jacksonville, donkey.
Yeah, and that one of those years was the year where Jacksonville could run over literally everyone with any running back they put out there. There's another back in that 2017 draft, though, who you can make a case was a great one. Christian McCaffrey, but another guy who wore down towards the end of seasons and last year got a huge injury. But he's played more often than not, so I'll give him that. But let me name you some other running backs from that draft alone. 2nd-round picks include Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon. 3rd-round picks include Alvin Kamara, Kareem Hunt, James Conner. 4th-round picks include Jamal Williams, Marlon Mack, Aaron Jones, Tyreek Cohen. 7th-round pick is Chris Carson. Were the first 2-round picks even better than the guys taking after them? I know Christian McCaffrey's great, but Dalvin Cook is one of the best in the league. Kareem Hunt is one of the best in the league when he's not beating on women. And Alvin Kamara is one of the best in the league. You're talking, is the value really worth it? When you're talking those guys come afterwards?
That's where the point is made. I do not think the value is there for a first rounder.
No, me neither, but it gets even better. We can go to 2018. Saquon Barkley, great player, right?
Yes.
Only 1 full healthy season, hurt at the end of the year 2 out of his 3 years. So wouldn't be able to help you in the playoffs if you made it. That's a huge no-go. But let's look at the other 2 names on this one. Sonny Michel, Rashad Penny was another first-round pick, and he was taken around where the Steelers would take a running back. Not top 10 talent like Saquon Barkley.
Right.
Do you want to go at the backs who were drafted afterwards? 2nd-round picks, you had Nick Chubb, Ronald Jones II, Kerryon Johnson. In the 4th round, you had Naheem Hines, the guy for Indy who does pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
All right, 2019, Josh Jacobs was taken around this area, right? But if you waited, you could have had Miles Sanders in the 2nd round, David Montgomery in the 3rd round, Devin Singletary in the 3rd round, Tony Pollard in the 4th round, who I know it was jokingly said tongue-in-cheek, but remember, Jerry Jones said, we don't need Zeke because we have Tony Pollard, essentially. Also, Benny Snell Jr. is in the 4th round, dude. I'm just saying, there's possibly the Steelers starter. And Myles Gaskins was taken in the 7th round. He had a good year last year for Miami. How about last year? Do you remember the one running back taken in the first round in 2020?
One running back in 2020.
First rounder. Went to the Chiefs. Edwards-Helaire.
Yeah.
Injured. Didn't help in the playoffs much because he was hurt. As a matter of fact, I think he had one game he didn't play. One game he averaged like a yard per carry, and then he averaged like 9 yards per carry in the Tampa game just because they didn't try to stop the run because, the game was kind of over already.
Right.
But you could have waited for the second round, and you could have got DeAndre Swift, and personally, maybe the best running back in the draft, Jonathan Taylor, went in the second round. Cam Akers went in the second round. J.K. Dobbins, who ran all over us for Baltimore, went in the second round. And Washington drafted Antonio Gibson in the third round as backs who have been more productive probably than Edwards-Helaire to the point. So my point is, the popular pick for the Steelers is a running back, but running backs are the worst value in the first round because normally they're just as easily replicated by a late round draft pick. And even if you're lucky and get one, I think it's like 1 out of 4 ends up being the best running back in their draft class if they're taken in the first round. I mean, even if you're lucky, those guys get hurt. And then if you waste a first round pick on a guy who gets hurt and doesn't really have long-term value, because do any of these guys even have more than a 5-year shelf life? Like, look at Todd Gurley. He's on what, his 4th team now? 3rd, 4th team?
Yeah.
It's just, Gingy, tell me where the value is and why the Steelers should take Najee Harris.
Well, where the value is, and if you should take Najee Harris, is if he is Derrick Henry Jr. and he puts up 4 out of the next 6 years at 1,500 yards plus. That's where you look back on this conversation and you feel quite silly.
But Derrick Henry was a second-round pick.
I understand, but I'm just saying, if he runs for 1,200 yards in 4 of the next 6 seasons, he's 100% worth a first-round pick.
I hear you.
That's the only argument.
I'll counter you with this.
You told me to make an argument.
I'll counter
it's
you
not
with
my
this.
argument. You just told me to make
No,
one. That'd be the argument.
I got you. If he does that, is it important that he puts up 1,500 yards a year, or is it important that he's healthy and productive in the playoffs? Which one's more important here? Is it that he puts up a great season, or that he's healthy and productive in the playoffs? Like, what if he only is a 700-yard back, but he does good in the playoffs? Like, let's say he has a 200-yard rushing game that the Steelers lose. Is that still good enough production from a running back, even though he's not really putting up great numbers? He just put up a good playoff game?
Now you're talking very deep chicken egg philosophy here, Donkey, because what is more important in life, getting to the playoffs or winning in the playoffs?
I'd say based off the way we let Le'Veon Bell go, winning in the playoffs.
It looks like it, right? But I don't know. If we're talking about a team that's being said by Vegas right now to have a 9-win season, getting to the playoffs sounds pretty important.
I hear you, and I've said it all along. I feel like this team's building a 500 team that's hoping to stay healthy and hoping some good things can happen so we can make the playoffs and maybe get hot at the right time. I'm not against that because we've already done it, so I'm going full bore in that. However, I don't think Josh Jacobs is the answer, because even if you get Josh Jacobs, who the hell is blocking for him? Or not Josh Jacobs, excuse me. Wow. Sorry, was going to the person that keep hearing comps up. Najee Harris, that is. If we get Najee Harris, is this offensive line good enough to let him be better than what James Conner was last year?
That's no. In my opinion, no. He's not that good.
If he's not that good where he can make a bad offensive line good, is it worth drafting him if the offensive line isn't good? I guess becomes the question. Or should we focus on drafting the offensive linemen and then going later in the rounds, maybe second round, getting Williams out of North Carolina? Or better yet, in my opinion, waiting to the 3rd or 4th round and getting the 2 backs I really like from the draft, Trey Sermon or Chuba Hubbard. Is it better to wait and take one of those backs and have better linemen? Or is it better to take the running back and get second-tier linemen, I guess is what I'm saying. Because it seems like the experts think the Steelers will take the running back and then go second-tier linemen. But should we go first-tier lineman, second-tier running back? Which way has the bigger potential in your opinion?
I want the first-tier lineman. Because they not only help the running game overall, regardless of who's back there, but they help Ben Roethlisberger.
That's a great point because we had a hard time keeping Ben upright when we held on to the ball. So that could be huge. I mean, if the Steelers draft Najee Harris, I'm going to root for him as hard as possible. But okay, hear me out on this. There are two positions in the draft that have just absolute trash value. Wide receivers and running backs. And hear me out for the reason. Running backs, you can get equal value later in the draft. You can even get equal value from undrafted free agents. I mean, that kid who was doing it in Denver was an undrafted free agent. I don't know why I can't think of his name right now. The little guy. But not only that, you can get running backs off the scrap heap. Like I said, there's former first rounders, former huge runners like Todd Gurley still out there, who if you put behind a good line could probably still compete. There's Jerick McKinnon. There's Tevin Coleman. There's guys who have got it done in the league that probably just need to get put behind a good line. And wide receivers, the reason I say it is if you want a wide receiver, you wait for him to get disgruntled and you trade for him. Odell Beckham Jr., Stephon Diggs, DeAndre Hopkins. You look at it, receivers get traded, so drafting one in the first round when, I think receivers are something like a 50% bust rate as first-round draft picks, don't have value. The guys who tend to be, even if they're not great players, the guys who tend to be longtime contributors are normally offensive linemen, defensive linemen, linebackers, mainly middle linebackers, but edge rushers are the tricky ones because a lot of edge rushers fail. But to be fair, a lot of those edge rushers who fail because they go on teams that want to convert a guy who fits into a 3-4 to a 4-3 end or vice versa. You have to draft an edge rusher that fits your defensive scheme. And for some reason, people don't do that. They just take best available. But that's why I would avoid those two. I just don't see value. What do you think, Gingy?
I agree. I'm looking at a more long-term choice here, Donkey. This is the start. This is the start of the rebuild.
I hear you. And honestly, the guy you're looking at, Tevin Jenkins, is my third wish. My first wish is trade back to the second round and add another pick this year. I would trade to someone who has an early second, early third round pick, take a second, third, and a third next year for our first round pick, and get ourselves two more chances at a deep pool of offensive linemen. Because while there is a gap that starts creating, there is a deep pool of capable interior linemen and tackles. Because if you trade back, I mean, even if you miss out on Cosme or Tevin Jenkins, you still have guys like Jalen Mayfield. You still have guys like Alex Leatherwood who could come in. Or Jackson Carman, who's been manning the weak side at Clemson for a long time, who could come in and probably start day one at left tackle. I think if you're going to go offensive line, unless you're in love, and I don't know who the Steelers are in love with, unless you're in love with one of those top tackles, I think you try to trade back as hard as possible because someone will be in love with them, and you can get huge value by trading back. You might even be able to add Najee Harris or Travis Etienne at that early second-round pick you get, and then address the offensive line need.
That sounds like the plan.
Number 2 for me is stay at 24 and take Jason Owe because I would love that. And I think getting a guy who has Pro Bowl potential that late is hard to do, but you need to take a guy who hasn't done it for a long time. That's why we got TJ Watt, because a lot of people are like, oh, the production isn't that great. He was a former tight end. He's not a natural defensive end yet. And look what he turned into. You can get that again. Let's see what happens. Because we drafted him, 30th or something? It was late. I know that. And option number 3 is take one of the guys that you looked at. I think Tevin Jenkins is the one I'd prefer, but if I had to go another way and a guy who I am pretty sure will be there, it's Samuel Cosme from Texas. I actually like him. I think he would do a really good job protecting Ben's weak side. I think he might be the most, outside of Penei Sewell, I think he might be the most ready to play left tackle in the draft. I don't think he will be the best one in the draft, but if you're drafting for playing today, I think Samuel Cosme is a huge ready-to-play left tackle in the NFL. Limited upside because of his size and really not a super strong guy, but ready to play, and maybe that's what we need.
Let's go. We definitely need something to bring that running game back up to snuff, Donkey.
Yeah, that's gonna be a huge part of establishing is getting this team back together. And I mean, I'm getting a little nervous when I keep watching every team in our division making moves to get better, and the Steelers are kind of just standing pat and filling needs with replacement level players. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but I want to see something that makes me feel that next year is going to be something other than just fringe playoffs. And right now, it's the offseason. I should be more optimistic, but I don't feel anything but fringe playoffs right now. I need a first-round draft pick that shows the Steelers are serious. I need a trade up for Micah Parsons. I need a trade up for Justin Fields if he falls. I need a trade up for Mac Jones. I need a trade up because for some freaking reason, the NFL teams decided they want to get all these skill players, and sitting there available at number 9 is freaking Penei Sewell, and we're like, you know what? We're going to trade up and we're going to get the most dominant tackle in the draft. I want that. I want that. Can I get it?
I don't know, Donkey. What kind of deal are you willing to make with the devil here? What kind of future are you willing to sell for this?
I'm willing to trade Deontay Johnson, our first-round pick, and a third-round pick next year.
Ooh.
Got it. We have too many receivers. I'm sorry. Deontay Johnson has the biggest case of the drops of them all, and he's the one I trust the least come playoff time. So I hate to say it, but Deontay Johnson's just a pretty slot receiver at this point in his career. We already have a pretty slot receiver in Juju Smith-Schuster. I want to get away from this idea of throwing screen passes 24/7, which is why Deontay gets the ball so much. And I want to focus on vertical pass game. You know who our 2 best vertical pass catchers are?
Claypool and Washington.
Exactly, and that's why those are the 2 I keep. And our best run blocker is Juju. So I keep all 3 of them because I want to get to a vertical pass with run blocking. I think Penei Sewell is a great way to get there. I trade up to get him. Personally, I would prefer to trade down, but if the Steelers want to, because I think they need to build a better team, and I think the way to build a better team in the long haul is the more picks this year for the big plethora of linemen. But if they want to sell me on this year, they're going for it. That's the guy I want to see. And then I want to see the signing of a Todd Gurley, a Jerick McKinnon, or a Tevin Coleman.
I think that would definitely help some of the offensive woes, Donkey.
Also bring back Jesse James just because, the Outlaw deserves to be back in black and gold.
I couldn't agree more. Loved him when he was there.
All right, Gingy. Anything else we need to hit up this week?
No, Donkey. I'm just going to be excited for Thursday night. Everybody get your popcorn ready.
All right, before we go, I need to know Gingy's dream scenario for going 1, 2, 3 in the Steelers draft is
Tevin Jenkins, number 1. Getting a good value at running back at number 2. Filling the rest of the holes at line for number 3.
I gotcha. My 1, 2, 3 would definitely be Jason Oweh. Number 1. Number 2, Alex Leatherwood for some reason falls to us in the second round. And then at number 3, we somehow get one of the centers. I don't know, maybe Landon Dickerson, Creed Humphrey do something silly and they fall all the while. Or, worst comes to worst, we end up with a guy like Josh Myers out of Ohio State. I mean, I would take any of those. But that's what I would like to see happen 1, 2, 3. So now, to our greatest moment. Shout-outs! Gingy.
Oh, you know me, being the homer, Donkey, being the homer on the hardcore defense, I love seeing Vince Williams come back. Shout out to Vince Williams. I'm so excited to get him back as a Steeler again next year. Would have been tough filling that spot. Would have been some weakness in the middle. I don't like seeing weakness in the middle. I like seeing strong defensive line play, at both those levels. Vince Williams provides that. Let's hope for more continued years of run shutdown.
I hear you on that. Good on Vinny. My shout out is to James Conner. I wish you the best. Pit Kid, beat cancer, did everything you need to do. I think you gave your all while you were here. I'm going to remember it fondly. I hope you nothing but the best in Arizona because you're in the way over there in the NFC, so who really cares? But my shout outs to him for all that he's given to the Steelers. Absolutely love it.
Woot woot. I love it, Donkey. True that.
As you know, you can reach us on our socials if you have anything to say with us. Leave a comment on the YouTube, hit me up on the Twitter, leave an email if you really want to. Come visit me at Viking_Donkey on Twitch. Visit me at Viking Donkey on Xbox Live. I'm on like every night around 6 Alaska, so that's what, 10 Eastern, playing with my kid. You can just send me a message and be like, yo, you suck. I don't care. Leave something. And you can go ahead and hit Gingy up at
Mutant Gingy, Xbox Live. We playing some Madden, folks.
We playing some Fallout's what they get to see. You know what time it is then, Gingy, don't you?
It's that time every week. Steelers Nation, pick 'em up and wave 'em if you got 'em. Let's go.